Today, I am so excited for this conversation. This guest has been on my must-have list since the very beginning of the show. Today, I'm joined by Tim O'Brien, a local favorite and the founder of The Healthy Place. He started the company back in 2010, and what began as a single health and supplement store has grown into multiple locations serving the Madison area. Now, Tim is expanding that impact even further with the Healthy Place Clinic, offering holistic and integrative care to support people on a deeper level with their health journeys. Hi, Tim. Thanks for joining me today.
Hey, Erica. Thank you so much for having me.
Like I said, I'm so excited for this conversation, and there's so much I want to get to. So before we, talk about your new clinic and even your supplement store, I want to know how you even got into supplements to begin with.
Yeah, it started when I was just a little guy. So I was maybe 6 or 7 years old, and my mom developed cancer. And I remember the fear there, and hearing about big words at the time, like I can't say it right now, chemotherapy and radiation, and my mom going through that fear of her very life and her health. And someone in her life recommended go to this supplement store in a little town called Muskego, Wisconsin. And it was a health food store. There was an older gentleman named John who took her by the hand and sort of educated her around supplements that might be able to help in some of her areas of like brain fog or fatigue or sleep issues. And in her words, it impacted her life. And in some ways, she would say it maybe even saved her life. And it created this experience where she's like, man, I want to bring this to others. And so she became the manager of that health food store. And us 5 kids were homeschooled. So we would often come to work with mom and sit in the back room, working on math or different subjects. And I just remember observing like these customers come in and say, hey, thank you, Tanya, and what you recommended a couple months ago really helped my chronic pain. It took the edge off. Thank you so much. And I just grew up learning about natural alternatives as sort of like what to go to first, maybe before pharmaceutical drugs or surgeries, like maybe just become a little more educated on what the natural alternatives are before we try some of the medical side. And so that was sort of my upbringing.
Wow. And that makes so much sense. And I'm grateful for things like podcasts and you talking on the radio to make people aware that there are options other than just pharmaceuticals. So regarding the supplements, I feel like sometimes even when I walk into a supplement store, it's like, whoa, there's a lot on the shelf.
Yeah. Thousands of products and hundreds of brands.
A lot of times when people have symptoms, they don't just have one symptom and they don't even maybe know what their symptom is. They just don't feel well. So if our listeners are listening and they're like, well, where do I even start? Like, what do you recommend for someone if they're just walking in your store going, okay, my doctor told me nothing's wrong with me, but I still don't feel well. What do I do?
Oh, goodness. That's a loaded question because there's 3 like circles, I would say. Circle number 1 is people really aren't not taking care of their basic health. So things like hydration, we were just kind of talking about, and I ran and got my water bottle from the car and, drink water like it's your job. When you're thirsty, you're already dehydrated. So what is it like to be hydrated on a regular basis? And then what does it look like to eat a cleaner diet? Like people know what ultra processed foods are without becoming very educated, like steer clear of as many ultra processed foods as you can. That's number 2 is like your diet. Your basic activity, like getting 8 to 10,000 steps a day, like just get one of those counters, and then sleep health, like especially those hours between 10 and 2, don't burn yourself out. Like when you don't get a good night's sleep, like you actually can't make that up. Like the science points to, you just can't make that up. So get sleep at least between those 10 to 2 hours. And and then social connection, like the science is pointing towards like a couple social connections per week. So those are like the top 5 that people just neglect. And those are things you can do for free right now. And then in the world of supplements, there's like foundational supplements that near everyone can benefit from. And at The Healthy Place or findyourhealthyplace.com, we'll recommend Foundational 5, we call it, which are just like foundational supplements that are good for, pretty much everyone. And that's like a good quality multivitamin because we're all deficient in one way or another. an omega-3 fish oil because it's the second most studied nutrient in the world, and heart health, brain health. Omega-3s from fish are powerful for the body. Probiotics, because your good and bad bacteria are always in a race and decides the state of like your immune system, for example. 80% of your immune system's right in your gut. Anti-inflammatory, because inflammation leads to, all forms of degenerative disease and chronic pain. And then antioxidants, because free radical damage, oxidative stress. So it's kind of like circle one is just like the things you can do for free. Circle two is more in the world of supplements. And then circle three is really where the Healthy Place Clinic was born, which is like get to the root of your problems. Like it's called foundational care, and it doesn't replace primary care or acute care or specialty care. Like in Madison, we have some of the best in the world here. This is foundational care. So it's root cause diagnostics with a team that practices collaborative medicine and integrative medicine. And so we'll encourage people pretty often, even in our supplement store, like, well, maybe go over to the clinic, get some lab work done. I like to say like genetic testing is your past, lab testing is your present, and things like VO2 max are your future. So get like some clarity on where you're actually at so that you can treat it rightly with the right supplements, with the right nutrition, with the right lifestyle, and then match that with what you're passionate about. Like, where are you wanting to go in your health? Like, what are your areas of health that you really want to get after?
Yeah.
So that's a mouthful, and it depends, where someone's at. We'll try to ask them some questions and fan the flame of their health best we can. And foundational care is really a vital component that people really don't understand.
That's so important. Okay, so much I want to delve into. Let's start with that circle one where you talk about all those basics that are for free that in today's society, we seem to have lost. We need to go back to the basics again of movement and the food. I just want to touch base on the food because I just got done listening to a part of a podcast that we talked about the food pyramid. We've now flipped that upside down.
So cool, man. I was like, one of the best days of my life. I was like, because I never thought it could happen. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's so cool.
And putting Fruit Loops as a vital food is not appropriate, right?
It's not hitting.
Yeah. So how important is it? Let me back up a little bit. One of the things that they talked about in this podcast that I listened to is that we need to get back to cooking, right? So that we're eating whole foods and can get those nutrients from the whole foods and also have that feeling of community when we're eating dinner together. So that's a win-win when we're doing that. But I feel like people are so busy that convenience outweighs that step. So talking about, food and the food pyramid and nutrition and all that. So how do we even begin to give people some encouragement to make those changes?
Yeah. I mean, one thing I like to say is like, I don't think there's like the perfect diet for everyone.
Right.
And I think for years I would chase like which diet is perfect because I have a voice here in Madison, at least for my customers, at least. And they sort of look to me for some sort of guidance and like, okay, what diet should I recommend? You just hear of all these different diets and it feels like there's a new one every week. And they all have pros and cons, it seems. And some people do great and some people don't. So first off, just like releasing that expectation of like, there's not a perfect diet and there are things that are good for like everyone. And so we know for certain, for example, that ultra processed foods, UPFs, I have to visualize that one, are like poison for the human body. And that was like discovered in the early 1990s, I think. In Europe, they had that big, hey, this is not only poisoned, ultra processed foods, but it's highly addictive and it is not good for your body. So I think in general, if we can understand what ultra processed foods are, and there's a range of degree from like a smoothie, like technically that's a, food processor, literally processes food. So like, okay, what's an ultra processed food? And synthetics, artificials, dyes, mass amounts of sugar. You brought up Fruit Loops or, Lucky Charms. And I grew up on these things. And then you just begin to learn what that does in the body, like through glucose, for example, is something I'm quite passionate around educating. When you have a fasted glucose level past 85, like every point past 85, the science is saying that you have a 6% increased all mortality rate every point you're past that. So it's just like, when I learned that, I'm like, okay, goodness, I need to become more educated on my own body. And, I got one of those glucose monitors, become educated for my own body so I can help others. And then glucose spikes, if you're having a spike more than like 30 or 40 on a regular basis, and many will have 3 or 4 per day for decades, like these two things, fasted glucose levels and too high of spikes on a regular basis, open 2 floodgates. Floodgate 1 is inflammation. Floodgate 2 is browning. And inflammation, most people have heard of, and inflammation is the root of all chronic pain for the most part. It's the root of all degenerative disease, or at least a big part of it. Cancer, you have inflammation was sort of the fuel or the fire behind that. I call them the 4 horsemen, is more what it's been called: cardiovascular disease, cancer, dementia, and diabetes are the 4 horsemen, and they're fueled by inflammation. They're created through inflammation. And that's in the science of epigenetics. Genetics we can't control as much, but most of disease is created through epigenetics, which is that which you can control. At least that's what more and more of the emerging science is saying, that which you can control through diet and activity. And so then the second floodgate is called browning, which is the fastest way to age, by the way. And, you take a bite out of an apple, it turns brown. That's browning, and that's called oxidative stress, and that's happening internally, externally. So that second floodgate, you want to keep both these floodgates closed. And so I mean, just learning that fact this last year has lit a fire for me, because for the last 16 years that we've had the Healthy Place opened, I've been speaking to inflammation, which is important conversation. And right before it's the inflammation, it's like, what's producing that? Well, it's these spikes and this fasted glucose levels. So everyone needs to know these facts, because these 4 horsemen are taking out the ones we love all the time.
I'm going to dive into the glucose a little bit, because I don't know a lot about it, and it fascinates me. And I know with recent research, they're finding that like Alzheimer's and dementia are directly impacted by your sugar intake. But with glucose, we're not just talking about like eating a donut, right? So how can you simplify and explain how to regulate your glucose, based on diet, or how that works? Like, is it just, straight up sugar? Is it fruits, or what is it causing those spikes?
Yeah. So all carbohydrates get converted into glucose or sucrose or sugar, into your bloodstream. Mm-hmm. And for years, I would eat in a way, because I've been on the side that I've been trying to gain weight, that I'm thinking, hey, more carbs are great. And if you, for example, eat a high carbohydrate meal, and then you go sit down at a computer, for example, like it will spike glucose into your bloodstream. And that glucose only has a few different ways to go. So if you're not working out or going on a walk or being active, it's not going to go to your muscle. So place one for it to go is your muscle, which is great. And if you're going to go on a walk, that's why, for example, if you're going on a hike, people would eat an apple or some carbs to give that fuel, that energy. We need that energy. But if your muscle is already full of glucose, then it has to go to that subcutaneous layer, if I'm saying that right, or your liver. And so the subcutaneous layer is what leads to, obesity and weight gain. And when it goes to your liver, it builds non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. And so you'll see a liver that's all like fuzzy with white, like mossy. That's like non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. And so those two are very bad. And, this 4 horsemen, in opening these 2 floodgates, inflammation and browning, that's the fastest way to create these degenerative diseases in your body. Again, cancer, cardiovascular disease, diabetes, dementia, are to have this fasted glucose level be higher and your spikes, on a regular basis. So we want to shut both of those things down. And what happens in this day and age is, I'll just use myself as an example because this is a real story and I'm learning all this stuff, right along with the listeners that are learning about it too. There's many people smarter around me that have known this for a long time, but I've just discovered this the last year. So my fasted glucose was 104. This is about a year ago when I had my glucose levels tested, and my primary doctor wouldn't really even bring anything up. So my primary doctor didn't tell me this. One of our practitioners has told me this. So I learned it through getting my own lab work done, and then education through books like Outlive with Dr. Adia, Glucose Revolution, 2 great books to read on this topic. And so my level was 104. Now, if you remember what I said earlier, 85 is really the fasted glucose level that you want to kind of be at. And anything past that is negative. It starts to open those 2 floodgates. So 104, so typical in the United States here, like no one would ever bring that up. Like primary doctor usually wouldn't bring it up. And so then, I'm 41. So then fast forward to when I'm 51, now that 104 became, let's say, 117. And now my primary doctor would bring it up because would be classified as pre-diabetic. And so when someone learns they're pre-diabetic, the doctor might say, and all doctors are different, so, there'd be a range here. So I don't want to put a broad umbrella over everyone. 117, they'd say, hey, pre-diabetic, not a big deal. Keep an eye on like what you eat. This is not diabetes, so don't freak out. AKA it's not a big deal.
Right.
And at least the community that's come into our stores over the years, that's the sort of, they bring it up that way. They would just kind of talk about, pre-diabetes, but not really a big, but those that understood more about the topic would be like, well, I don't want to be type 2. So then fast forward another 10 years, 51 to 61, now that 117 becomes 129. And now their primary doctor says, hey, you have type 2 diabetes, it's like, oh my goodness. Okay. So watch what you eat. Don't freak out. A lot of people have type 2 diabetes. Watch what you eat. Let's try to get that glucose level down. And then some people take it seriously and some people don't. So now fast forward to 71, now we're like 142 and it's like, get on the medications, get on the insulin, the metformin, because things have continued to creep up. We haven't had the education or the action in our life to work on getting these numbers down. So now our numbers are screaming high. We're medicated. And fast forward to 81. Well, okay, now my foot has been numb for years. The concerns around my health are now at critical point. And, and many of our loved ones get taken by diabetes, let's just say at age 81. And what no one knew is way back when you were 41 or when you passed that number of 85 on the fasted glucose level, your nerves were dying right now. And so my naturopath was kind enough to share with me after my lab work that like, hey, Tim, just so you know, 104, your nerves are dying right now. And that shook me. And people need to know this stuff.
Yeah. I think that's what I've said too to people is like, don't wait till you're sick, super sick to make a change. Don't think of yourself 5 years from now when your future self tells you should have done things differently. And have that start, and that's the glucose level is not something I've ever had monitored or checked. It's becoming more of a thing right now that people are wearing them and monitoring them. But I've never gone to my primary and they've said, let's just check your glucose for fun. I mean, not at all.
Never would even have that come up.
No.
And it's the primary thing that creates the main diseases that are taking out our loved ones. And I didn't even know about it. I've been in the health industry for decades. My whole life, I grew up in this industry, I didn't know about any of this.
Right.
And it's the most important thing I can educate my customers around.
So is it something that people like can't eat any carbs and sugar in order to keep their glucose level down? Or
No,
it's
a good question. Yeah, that's why wearing one's helpful for people, because everyone's so different. So first off, you can eat, for example, I can have oatmeal with some chocolate chips on it and some maple syrup and almond butter. But Becky, my wife, can't. And it just spikes our levels differently. Likewise, you can eat your carbs with, I think the sequence of eating is very important. So I think it was 2015, University of Cornell put out a study that analyzed two groups. Group one, they were all type 2 diabetics. Group one watched the sequence in that they ate. So vegetables first, then proteins, fats, then sugars, carbs, starches. And then type 2 did not. And the end of the study, it immediately, so for those that watched the sequence in that they ate, it immediately started reversing type 2 diabetes. Immediately started reversing type 2 diabetes. And it's because carbs, if you have an empty stomach, for example, or you eat the French fries first on an empty stomach, the uptake into your bloodstream is so fast. But if you have the veggies first, or say you don't have any veggies in a meal, but there's protein, veggies, proteins, fats, they all break down slower. So picture the bottom of your stomach, veggies, proteins, fats, they break down slower. So then the carbs don't uptake as fast into your bloodstream. So that concept is really important because, I'll just use Becky as an example because she said I can use this example out in the public. She loves chocolate chips, she's like Jesus and chocolate chips. That's all I need.
I'm right there with her. Right there with her.
All right. 5 kids. She's like, handfuls. Yeah. So she has her little chocolate chip jar, and for years she would take a little handful and, help her get through the day. And so when she started wearing a glucose monitor, it's like spiking. She's like, okay, goodness, that's not good. But she had read some of these books I brought up, and now she takes a scoop of almond butter and puts the chocolate chips on the almond butter, which is even better, really. I mean, that sounds delicious. I want some of that right now. And it doesn't uptake. And, I was, didn't make a great food decision. This is a few months ago, but I like to use the example of mozzarella sticks before bed. And there's a couple of things wrong with that. You're about to go sleep, it's more processed foods. But I just like to give people this like clarity. The mozzarella sticks by themselves spiked my insulin. But if I ate protein, I had a protein shake before it, then it didn't spike my sugar levels. And so you can take the foods you love and just be a little bit smarter on how you eat them and level out some of those spikes.
So if I were going to do a pre-workout, instead of just having a banana, I could have like a banana protein shake and that with almonds in it, and that should help alleviate the glucose if it's in the smoothie, or it should be layer by layer instead.
Bananas are actually pretty great. It's like, say you ate an apple. So an apple with almond butter would be better than an apple by itself. But if you're going to be active, then those carbs are great.
Okay.
So with a workout, you're going to be utilizing those carbohydrates, glucose, is in your muscle. So it gives you that extra power going into your bloodstream. And so you want some carbs around like a workout, for example. But say you were going to go sit down at your computer, eating an apple. I mean, apple has fiber in it, so it's obviously better than like a white bagel. I'm not picking on fruit, but fruit does have a lot of sugar in it.
Right.
So just be aware that if you go sit down, then that is going to be much more likely to spike your glucose levels. And everyone's so different. So you can't, again, say this is true for everyone. But yeah, that's
fascinating. And I like what you mentioned earlier about, getting your lab work done and having the glucose meter. It's all data. Like you have to know where you are to know where to even move forward. And there's nothing, even the scale, like don't feel shame about the scale. You're just trying to figure out where you're starting so you can see where you need to go.
Yes.
I think it's important for people to reframe how they see that, because I get it. You don't want to be reminded that you're not where you wish you were, but you're not going to get where you wish you were if you don't know where you start, right?
Right. Well, for example, I work with a lot of people in the supplement store, and the clinic is really an evolution out of the supplement store. So for years, people would come to my stores. I have 3 in Madison, and say, okay, I have this problem. What supplement can I take? And I would say, okay, curcumin has been working great for inflammation. So it helps many in our community take the edge off of chronic pain. And that's true. However, that becomes symptom chasing. So it's sort of like whack-a-mole, where you're like symptom, symptom, symptom. But what's going on under the hood? You bring the scale up, for example. Okay, I'm eating well, I'm working out, and I cannot lose weight. Like, I'm so discouraged with myself. I'm so angry at myself. Like, I don't like how I look. And so then you look at that scale as like, what's going on under the hood there? Like, for example, women's hormones is like an epidemic. I mean, there's a lot of women suffering in the area of hormones and, perimenopause, menopause. Mm-hmm. And if you don't know that that's what's going on under the hood, then you're going to be stuck spinning your wheels, being frustrated, discouraged. So root cause is in my opinion, really a huge part of how we should even look at health. Like, if you don't know what's going on under the hood, and I'll pick on myself or pick on the supplement world, like vitamin D is huge for a lot of reasons. And so for years, somebody would, hey, yeah, everyone should take vitamin D. Well, unless you don't need vitamin D, but how would you know that without some lab work?
Right. And I'm so glad you brought that up, because that was one of my questions, because vitamin D is one of those things, again, that I think most people, especially in Wisconsin, are deficient in. And even your primary, they rarely test whether you're deficient. There was a period in my life, to get a little personal, that I had a lot of fatigue and illness, and it took them a while to actually test for the basic of vitamin D. And I was so deficient. And when I started taking that and bring those levels up, I felt better.
Oh, mood health, energy health, immune everything. System, yes. Anti-cancer.
And if you would have told, and when I heard it, I'm like, there's no way I feel this awful because I'm vitamin D deficient. That's offensive, because I felt like there was something really, really wrong, and there are many aspects of our deficiency because of our environment and our nutrition that are causing all these symptoms that make us feel super duper sick. Mm-hmm. And COVID, they were saying don't take vitamin D, when vitamin D was something that really could have helped everybody.
One of the most important things. Yeah. And I'll point to my own kiddos too. Rosemary is my daughter. She's 14 now. When she was a baby, she would projectile vomit on like a daily basis. And Becky and Becky would really take up the sword of research. She's the family researcher and the learner and the one that really seeks out answers for our kids. And so she was on a journey to discover like what was going on. And we had brought Rosie to a number of specialists and doctors in our area. And it took 2 years of this. Like, it was almost daily, every 2 days, 3 days, but on a weekly basis, 2, 3, 5 times for 18 months, something like that. And she finally discovered it was like acid reflux. And just something like rather basic that was undiagnosed for years. And George is another one of our kids, just when he was a baby, covered in scales, like skin issues. And we, had some basic lab work done, but then we later found out that this allergy test was not a good quality one. And, about a year after that, we discovered that he was actually anaphylactic to a few foods. And thank God we were able to find that out before he, because we didn't carry EpiPens or anything like that at the time. So he's anaphylactic to a couple of foods. And again, like, it was because there wasn't this root cause approach, this root cause diagnostics. We have some of the best primary doctors in the world here in Madison, And I was talking to one a couple weeks back where they just don't have time.
Right.
And so this MD I was talking to last month is interested either in joining our team over at the Foundational Care Clinic, the Healthy Place Clinic, or like maybe leaving the hospital and starting her own primary business clinic. And she was telling me, like, we only have like 5 minutes, and we've all experienced that where the doctor, we love him, I have a great primary, comes flying in. Like he's just, out of breath. He's flipping through the charts. He gives me eye contact, a couple times, but it's like he's just looking at the chart, trying to be like, okay, so you had this, you had that, CrossFit, how's this doing? How's that? And, I have asthma, for example. I have some skin issues. And, his response, if my asthma it's just, hey, here's a steroidal inhaler. And for the skin, like here's some steroids to maybe put on the skin. And there's just not time, this doctor was telling me last month, to really practice root cause diagnostics or root cause care. But she looked at me and she's like, Tim, like every day I'm failing my oath.
Mm-hmm.
Like in med school, we took an oath and I know what the patient in front of me needs and I don't give it to them.
Right. We had Dr. Amanda Primusberger on the show once too, and she's a direct primary care provider.
Oh, cool.
Who left the clinic for that same reason because she was so exhausted. So her life balance was off because she was running, like you said, in and out of appointments.
Too much. They're trying.
Yeah.
They're great humans.
But the system isn't set up that way.
It's a systemic issue.
Check in the computer. And again, we don't provide health care. We provide sick care,
mm-hmm.
And that's really
I heard someone say, primary care, acute care, specialty care, like you go to those guys when you're sick,
right?
And foundational care is where you go to work on problems that your doctor has given up on,
mm-hmm.
or areas of your health that you really truly want to optimize.
But how wonderful that we're at the point where we have options other than primary. And again, primary care providers are great and they do serve a purpose.
Yes.
But it wasn't that many years ago where we didn't have functional care, integrative care, foundational care. That was your only option. So I think a lot of people still don't know that it's there.
Yes.
Don't understand it, or are just too frustrated and just give up.
Well, that's where the community is at right now. Even like they come in with their, their notepad and they heard this podcast of like, okay, I should try this like red light thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then this podcast, they should try this series of like this type of workout,
mm-hmm.
and then they maybe read a book around this type of diet. So it's this piecemeal, like all this information, which there's infinite, and they're trying to distill it without any sort of genetic testing, lab work, or VO2. Like you need to understand your past through genetics, your present through lab work, and future through modalities or therapies like VO2 max that can project out your health 10, 20, 30 years. And without some of those things, like you can't really truly know where you're at or the treatment that you would need, the nutrition that you would need, the supplements that you would need, the activity, lifestyle, rest, sleep, working that you need. It needs to be personalized to you. I heard you say it earlier, like it has to be personalized to your data,
mm-hmm.
data driven. You're the, patient driven. You're the CEO of your own health, and all of that information and data that's connected to you and what's important to you is quite empowering to discover. And, that's where with Becky and I, like with our own kids, trying to help their health. And for me in the stores, working with my community, like looking around and trying to guide people, like what we currently have is just not enough. And I love what we've created and I love what others are creating because it's going to take a community to build and reach a community.
It is. I have goosebumps and the thing about wellness too, is that I think sometimes people think like they go into the doctor, they maybe get a diagnosis, they get a pharmaceutical prescription and then they're better. Like that's not realistic. Again, you might be treating the symptoms. Same thing when you go into a foundational care. Like you're not going to find all of a sudden you've one thing and you're great for the rest of your life.
No,
It's continual work.
We're complex creatures.
Just when we think we haven't figured out, then the body will throw something else in the mix.
Yeah, I love the idea that like, or just the reality that pharmaceutical drugs, like they're actually, they have a place. It's not like medical is bad and natural is good. Like naturopaths and medical doctors used to sit at the same table.
Right.
Back, I think it was 1950s, and then they were sort of driven apart by big pharma or whoever kind of divided them. And so there's so many voices right now that are like, let's bring integrative medicine back. And it sort of resonates with everyone, because you can go too far on the natural side, which I've done, and you can go too far on the medical side. And so true integrative medicine is where you have, medical, for example, at our clinic, we're literally doing it. It's so cool. And others are too. Like, we have an overseeing medical physician, we have a nurse practitioner, and then we have a licensed naturopath and 2 functional medicine doctors. And they sit at the same table every Friday for hours discussing, like, what are the bottlenecks? Like, what do we need for breakthrough for this challenging disease or issue or problem in our community? And it's like, that is so cool, because it's all about education and working as a team and collaborative medicine, integrative medicine, to bring that light that comes against the darkness, distress, disease, death in this town. And so it does get pretty cool. And pharmaceutical drugs, a lot of the times, will treat a symptom, but then damage the body. It's like putting a Band-Aid over the engine light. And so if there is an integrative approach or a natural approach that treats that same symptom but strengthens the body, I mean, that resonates with people.
As it should.
Yeah, it makes sense.
So I want to get into a bit more about your clinic and all that you offer. I'm glad you talked about that a little bit, but that transition, like, when did it become an idea that you need to focus on the root cause and opening a clinic? Because there's a difference between having a supplement store and being able to provide those supplements and then taking that big leap into opening. What did that transition look like?
For me, it was when a customer named Richard died of cancer. And I had met Richard 10 years earlier with his wife, Gail, and talked, in our stores, at least, we talk to our customers every month or every 2 months. They come back in for their supplements, so you just create a relationship with the community. And Richard battled cancer for 10 years. And, we had him on glutathione, because the liver is deficient on glutathione when you have cancer, and curcumin, because inflammation is a part of cancer, and greens powders, because cancer thrives in an acidic environment but dies in an alkaline environment, and vitamin C, because Dr. Gerson, in the 40s was curing cancer with vitamin C therapy. And so we had him on all the good stuff from a supplement space. And, the rest of his life was just out of my hands. And his cancer continued to get worse and worse and worse, ending in literally what's called radioactive, nuclear therapy. And he couldn't eat next to his wife, Gail, because he's radioactive. And nuclear therapy is like a newer FDA approved approach. And, he couldn't sleep after treatment. He couldn't sleep next to Gail. He had to have like plastic on his chair by the television. When he was driving home, he couldn't drive with Gail because he's radioactive. It's just terrible end that he had. Very not cool end that he had. And so that was I was emotional with Gail, because I just like people. I build relationship with the people. I care about this couple. And, we would pray together over the years, and we're going to win this thing, and just to end with that type of end was devastating to me. You just want to bring a value, and we didn't make it. And it's okay. You talk yourself through it and all this, but I knew, because I've just learned more and more over the years, that there's so many things outside of supplements that could have been done earlier when this thing was first discovered. And I thought to myself, I bet if we had a foundational care clinic, 10 years ago, I bet we could have saved them. And just that thought came in my mind. So Becky was the first one to think of this back in 2016. And then 2021 was with Richard. And so we started getting aggressive about creating this thing. But there is so many hurdles to creating anything great. I mean, it's been the hardest thing I've ever put together, been a part of putting together, just so hard. Cause I'm, you can tell pretty quick that I'm not a doctor, and like, I don't have the credentials. I barely graduated out of high school, 1.7 GPA, like that's just not my thing. And so it's been the fight of our life to bring this to the community. And for Becky, I would say the driving force has been our kids.
Yeah.
Because, George with his anaphylaxis, Rosie has, I shared the story with her acid reflux that she's battled throughout her life, but also contracted Lyme disease this last year, which has just been terrible. So we're a Lyme literate clinic as well for that reason. And so for her, it's been driven by our own 5 kids, like their health journeys. And I could share a bunch of stories from each of the kids. For me, I have the community and hundreds of customers / community members that battle chronic, terrible issues, that they are sick and they are discouraged and they are without help, and they feel like they're in a corner and they're heavily medicated and they don't know how to do with the symptoms, and they're just stuck, and they sort of come to the healthy place often like help. And I'm like, I can't help you. I could, here's a supplement. And we've been able to help people. You can see by our reviews that we help people, but I know that we're not getting to root cause all these years. So it's just devastating. And supplements are amazing, and the right nutrients in the human body are amazing. And without root cause discovery through whether it's genetics, lab work, VO2, you cannot know what's going on under the hood and truly give them what they need. So Becky and I, we both have different driving forces, but we're a great team. I was telling you before the show, we're like a kite and one who holds the string. So I'm the kite, but a kite can't fly without somebody holding the string. And so we make a great team. So we're like, okay, we're just going to do this. And the scariest part though is like attracting the right team, because it's all about the practitioners.
Right.
You can set up the best model in the world, but if you don't have the right people in the right seats, so we, through a series of events, Dr. Michael Smith, our MD overseeing medical physician, we couldn't have prayed for a better guy, because he's pediatrics. We're passionate about family. So he's our overseeing medical physician. And then Andrea, nurse practitioner, we've known her for years. She's just lovely. Her family is awesome. Her husband makes guitars and he's just this cool guy, and so Andrea is amazing. And Andrea is dietetics, gastrointestinal, and dry needling. And then Dr. Ashley is a functional medicine doctor who has been our family chiropractor for like 13 years, I think. And she's pediatrics and Lyme disease. And she's our director. And she's just like told me last week, she's like, well, I'm just creating like a sacred space in this clinic. And, I'm like, oh, I have so much to learn from you. She's just lovely. And then Dr. Brooke is a licensed naturopath, which is very different than a naturopath. So you can take a 3-week course in the state of Wisconsin and call yourself a naturopath, which can be a little bit misleading. If I took a 3-week course and called myself a naturopath, people would trust that I'm a naturopath.
Right.
And it is very different what Dr. Brooke has gone through 8 years, I think, to become a licensed naturopath, and 6 or 8 years. And her education, her history was actually in cancer support in Sedona, Arizona. So she was dealing with stage 4 cancer for years. She said, Tim, I needed to find something a little bit less stressful. But her knowledge around cancer support, because we don't treat cancer, we support cancer treatment. And then women's hormones is her big thing. So she has many women that she's already helped even in the last 6 weeks since opening. And then we have Dr. Bradley, who is a cool guy. I've known him for a long time. And he's a functional medicine doctor, specializing in VO2 max and sports and male hormones. So like testosterone, for example. And so this team of 5 practitioners, and then our receptionist, Hannah, is just amazing. We couldn't have asked for a better receptionist. She's just great. Puts up with all my stuff. Like, hey, Hannah, can you do this? She's just great. She kind of helps hold it all together in a lot of ways. So this team, Erica, like getting to watch them from a distance for HIPAA respect, watching them like check notes with each other in the halls, and then in the meeting room that we have at our clinic, like actually practice integrative medicine. Because I used to think integrative medicine was, if you have a MD and a naturopath under the same roof, it's automatically integrative medicine. But no, it's actually sitting down at the same table, discussing challenging issues. So getting to observe firsthand this team come together, and then our goal around being cutting edge and patient driven and actually caring, along with practicing root cause diagnostics. Those are sort of our non-negotiables, like those 4, matched with our core values, has just been electric. And I have another hat with a lightning bolt on it that I wear often, because it's like incredible to me what can happen if a lightning bolt strikes the right area at the right time. It can start a fire,
Right.
And in people's lives, like, you give them the right information and it can change everything.
Oh, that's so exciting. So you opened up, what date did you open?
January 20th.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, and I did another podcast recording last week with a gentleman who has been battling cancer for 17 years. And his point was kind of what you said, that you have to have care providers in so many different aspects of your treatment. And that's lost in the way today's medical system works. Like you need to have, he's like, even a music therapy, or, just there's so many different things you can have that help to keep you healthy. Like and they have to be able to talk to each other. And that's a really hard mapping to have with our system. So the fact that you're providing that under one roof for people to, again, who are so frustrated because they don't feel well, and they've tried the things and they just are depressed, and then they go in SSRIs, and then, again, it's just a snowball effect.
Yes. And it's beyond our clinic too. It's like finding, I'll just highlight Dr. Sokol. I don't know if you've heard of her. She's an optometrist. Wonderful woman, anything to do with the eyes. Like, we're also bringing people in that have expertises we don't have, because I think humility and leaving the ego at the door is really important for a business owner that wants to make a difference. Where if we have, Becky has a friend with a son who's just a little guy and has eye cancer, and they've been trying to save his eye for this last, 12, 18 months. They fly to New York City every 10 weeks to try to save this eye. And Dr. Sokol is someone that we've asked to come in to our board of directors, that we want to come into our integrative meetings to bring and shed the light from her perspective. Because she, I don't know if she would call herself this, but she thinks functionally minded. So functional medicine, eye doctor, as an eye doctor, bringing in those that whole picture, that holistic picture, root cause diagnostic. So it's not just our clinic, although we are creating that. And I have a dream, because Becky's kind of like, well, hold on, let's just. But for a long time, I was like, we're going to create an integrative Mayo Clinic in Madison. It's going to have 150 different services, and we're going to strike lightning all over the city. And, and so that's my promised land. That's the North Star of what I want to create and bring. And right now we have so many in our community that are thinking like-minded, where it's like, we need to link arms, baby. We gotta pull together. We got to leave ego at the door. Business is important. I get it. Making money is important. I get it. Zig Ziglar is like, money's not everything, but it's second to oxygen. I get it. And we have to be humble enough to know when to ask for help, when to join with others, when to link arms with others in the community. So this is an invitation too for others to work with us. And it's been very cool, Erica, to see how many people are reaching out and being like, how can we join, and sometimes it might start in networking or referral passing, and maybe the focus is business. And it's so much more than that for anyone that I've talked to, at least like Dr. Sokol. It's very much so more about the business. She got into that because she wanted to make a difference.
Right.
And that's what we're going to keep working hard in Dane County. And that was cool too, in my journey, because in the supplement world, we have findyourhealthyplace.com, and we serve customers all over the United States with supplements. And so the focus was there for the last 5 years for me. We went through the CBD boom here in Madison, and we were kind of the first to marketing. So there's just a lot of resources that I thought I was supposed to bring supplements to the country. And that lost its passion, because all of a sudden it became more about numbers, and so it was a couple of years ago, Richard played a role, his passing played a role in my life where it's like, what am I doing? Like, I want to make a real difference. Like, I set out in 2010 with the Healthy Place to make a difference. And like, have I really expanded or extended human life in Madison like I want to over the last 15, 16 years? Have I really decreased human suffering or unneeded pharmaceutical medication or unneeded surgeries? Like, have I really made the difference that I set out based off all my mom's story way back all those years? Like, have I? And, sure, I've made a difference, but not near what I dreamed about, in 2010. So that started so my point is, the focus is Dane County, the focus is Madison, Wisconsin, and then education is fine around the world. I love that. Like, this podcast, I hope someone's listening right now. That's like root cause, foundational care, taking care of those 5 vital components like hydration, diet, activity, sleep, social connection. So for me, it's just been electric is just my word. Electric.
Too, like you said, I get the narrowing the focus, because they'll say that even like with podcasts, if your audience is too big, then you lose it, but if you're talking to someone in Austin, Texas, or Kalamazoo, whatever, there might be a medical professional who's like, I'm tired of that rat race of the medical system as it is, and I want to make a difference. And then all of a sudden you have these foundational clinics that are popping up all over, because
yes,
if you can do it, if someone else is doing it, then maybe they can do it too. And sometimes just hearing that message can make all the difference in the world.
Yes. For me, when I started asking that question of like, how can I really make a difference? The floodlight became a laser. It was like, oh, I can make a difference in this town.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, somebody great said, think small and make tiny changes. And it's like, I can do that. And then the more I started thinking about that, it was like, okay, it's time for this foundational care clinic. We got to get after root cause for people like Richard, because there's thousands of people suffering. I mean, it is crazy. And I was talking to Krista, this customer, and she's had insomnia forever. Insomnia, anxiety, just forever. And I met her 12 years ago, and we got her on some supplements. But fast forward, I'm talking to her a month ago, and it's like, she still has insomnia. She still has, I still have asthma. And we sort of settle for these conditions that we face and settle that life's normal. She said to me, though, she's like, if I had something large happening in my health, I don't even think I would know it, because I just feel kind of terrible every day.
Right.
And so she's going through our clinic, gaining some clarity. I was talking to a patient last week who had undiagnosed Hashimoto's for 10 years. And so she was running in 10 directions, trying to listen to all the information that was given to her and running in the wrong directions,
right.
And so just to have the clarity, I mean, it's really cool. And then, I know I'm going in a lot of directions in this too. It's like when you start following your passion, when you just breathe for a second, take a deep breath, and you sort of like ask like, okay, what gives to me? What am I passionate about? How do I want to help people or add value or do something with my life that counts? Or, what should I do next? Like, there usually is some clarity that'll come to you. Like, maybe not the whole picture, but maybe the next step.
Right.
And then the more you do that, the more the people around you start to see more clearly of their own. It's like that butterfly effect.
Yes.
That stuff's pretty cool.
Goosebumps, right?
Yeah.
I've said this a lot recently on these podcasts. They're like breadcrumbs that help guide you through the forest. When you get that, that little buzz in your skin going, I feel like this is the right thing. And when you get done doing something, you're excited about it. I said, real estate is my main job. That keeps me awake at night of the stress. But this podcast is my passion project, and that keeps me awake with excitement. And that's where you can kind of feel a difference between where you're supposed to be going.
And how powerful to manage your stress. Like, I started coloring recently.
Oh, that's so therapeutic.
Right. Like, I have not colored since I was like 11 years old. Right. And I remember it because I had always loved it, and people would compliment my work. And then 12 came, and it was probably like dude hormones, like school. All of a sudden, I was challenged with like, okay, people don't like me, or I'm not popular, I'm not good at sports. not very good at school, or this or that. And sort of my joy for coloring just like died for whatever, I just didn't give it time because there's other things, quote unquote, more important.
Right.
And so talk about managing stress and the importance of managing stress, like color or start a podcast or do the things that you love to do, because it's kind of like putting that oxygen mask on in the plane. Like you can't help your kids. You can't help your significant other. You can't be a good boss or a good employee or anything if you're not taking care of your body and your health. And it, in so many ways, people just push that to the side and they say, like, this is common for moms because I watch Becky do this, like, hey, I can't take care of my health because I have to take care of all my kids' health or my family or my home. And that like way of thinking, and I did it with the business, like business is too much, family's too much. So I'm going to put myself on the back burner.
Yep.
And my health suffered and my health continued to go downhill. And you have to let go. Yeah. You really do. You have to let go of this idea that you're okay. I'm going to get less done if I take care of my health. And that can be true. However, you taking care of your health will make the work you do exponentially more powerful and successful. And you just have to trust that process. It's like when you take care of yourself, it's like blessed. I don't know what other word. Like it's going to be okay. And you need to take care of your health and you just can't ignore it.
You can't. And everyone says, well, I don't have time to work out. Well, you don't have to go to the gym for 2 hours. You can go for a 20-minute walk. You know, there's the simple things like you addressed at the beginning, changing to eating whole foods. It's not that you have to count your macros and weigh out your food. You can make little changes.
Tiny changes.
And then once you get used to that, make a little bit more and take that momentum to, again, be healthier. So 5 years from now, you don't go, oh, I wish I would have been better in the past so I can live healthier today.
Yes. I'll give a tangible example because I worked 6 days a week for, goodness, I think it was 12 years, 2010 to 2022. And I believed I had to.
Right.
And once I saw my kids growing up and what that would impact, how that would impact Becky, because then she got her stuff done on Sunday. So then I didn't even put the pieces together. She's working 7 days a week, which just doesn't work. It's just not healthy. And so letting go of that, it's trusting, it's trusting the process going from 6 days to 5 days work week. It's interesting. Everything carried on, and amazing ideas came like the clinic.
Right.
And now we're creating even more of an impact here in Madison than we were when I was working 6 days a week. And so if you're listening, what do you need to let go so that you can take care of your health more? Because I would have loved to put those pieces together back in 2010.
Right. Yeah. When you're an entrepreneur, that really I think we just put it on ourselves that we have to do everything all the time, just so that I don't know, it's just a mindset, a guilt thing or a obligation or whatever, but it can be.
Yeah. Like you got to be the one in the organization that's working the most or the hardest in order to feel right about yourself.
Yeah.
And that's just not a healthy way to live.
Right. Yeah. And sometimes you start that way because you have to, given, but it takes its toll, and you miss time out with your family, and it's a hard balance for sure. So, oh my gosh, so much good information. So I'm going to have you back again to talk about more because we didn't even touch on
this was fun.
Talk about. So if people want to find the Healthy Place supplement store, where do they find you? And then how do they, before we get into where they find you, I'm going to back up. You're 6 weeks in, and so you're a new clinic here to the Madison area. Have you envisioned how to anticipate if you grow really fast?
Yeah.
What's your plan for that?
I mean, I have the location in Sun Prairie that I want, and then the one in, kind of middle ground in Fitchburg. We believe that the west side is underserviced right now. So that's sort of like the focus. And that's why we're on the west side on Junction Road there. So yeah, I have that flight path, and it's like 150 services and it's on the 10-year plan, and I'm so lit, and we're working hard though to use time as a tool. There's a cool book I read called The Science of Scaling, and that's been the coolest book I read since, Good to Great, as far as a book that's okay, how do we view time? Because time is so short,
right?
Life is so short. And so even using time as a tool, how can we be here in 3 years? How would that break down our process? and change how we're building or talking about it. And, we're only 6 weeks in, so I'm getting ahead of myself, but it's all, and it's the humility thing comes in too. Cause like there's others that I've personally connected with and encouraged that are technically competitors,
right,
that I'm like, market, like you got to get the word out. Like, how can we work together? Cause it's not about, my own kingdom,
Right.
it's like we all have the same enemy. It's darkness, distress, disease, and death. And everybody is on the same page when it comes to that. So it's like, I've all the plans in the world on how we're going to scale. And also, humility, I also call her Becky to remind me like to hold my hands open, because it's all about helping people.
Yeah.
And we're going to do that one way or another. And that's become a great passion of my life.
And again, when you're doing things for all the right reasons, they just seem to work out.
Isn't that something? I mean, that's where I'm like, I told it, like the team coming together or figuring out all these pieces. It's been like the hardest thing I've ever done, but also like it's happened naturally.
Right.
Like when you're following your passion, you're like shutting your eyes, meditating, praying, like whatever, like it'll come to you.
Right.
And letting go is a big part of it, and letting go of expectations, big part of it.
Yep.
So I do love that.
Yep.
That's happened to me.
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, so now we'll let our listeners know, how do they find you both at your Healthy Place store and your new clinic?
Yeah, so we have 3 physical locations, health food stores in Dane County, Madison, Wisconsin. And, that's in Sun Prairie and Fitchburg and the west side of Madison. And then we have findyourhealthyplace.com, which, anyone can order from. And then the Healthy Place Clinic, we can only serve Wisconsin because of how licenses work and all of that. We can expand over time, and there's ideas around that. Our practitioners really believe in like hands-on care.
Yep.
So like it's been lost a lot in our system where, you have a gland or something, the doctor's actually like feeling it and seeing how you're doing, how you're feeling. So hands-on touch. And so we're on the west side of Madison on Junction Road, and the healthyplaceclinic.com is the website where you can book now, and you can book. I'm so excited. The book in 5 minutes, and then come in for an intake where you spend that time with a practitioner to discover what in the world is going on in your health. And so I'm talking to people like, if you have something that you have felt stuck, you have like maybe given up on, that you're wanting to get to root cause, like there really is hope, and there really is answers based on your data, what you're passionate about, to gain discovery there. Or if you're somebody that just wants to optimize their health, like go to the next level, we have a great team over there, and that's the few ways that you can get connected with us. Also, my email, just if you have questions, I'm no doctor, but if you have any questions, Tim at findyourhealthyplace.com, you can shoot an email anytime. It's my favorite part of my job is getting to either help guide people in the right direction, or literally having an answer that I can be like, oh, do this, that's the few ways you can get connected.
I'm so excited for you, and I'm so excited for Madison. And then, like you said,
I know, me too.
There are lots of great clinics and alternative medicine practitioners that are in Madison that provide amazing information. And the fact that it feels like a spiritual revolution almost,
I know. It's like the lightning's going to strike. Let's make a little fire. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Well, I will put the links to both your store and your clinic in the show notes too, so everybody can have that. And before I ask my last question, I just want to again thank you for taking the time out for this.
Thanks for having me.
It's so important that people take agency over their health, and we talked about that before the podcast. Being the CEO of your health, because we tend to turn it over, or we don't feel like we have control over it, and the daily decisions that we make are directly impacting our health for our future. And the more we start to realize that and share that philosophy, I think the more people that will start to make changes to, and the goal is to someday be, playing on the ground with your grandchildren when you're older, or traveling the world, or whatever your dreams are. As you age, you don't want health to be the thing that inhibits you being able to do that.
Amen.
Yeah. Okay. So my final question is a 2-part question. So the first part is if you, Tim, today could have a conversation with your past self. And I'm going to maybe pick the one that was, with your mom when she was getting the diagnosis and seeing her go through care.
Mm-hmm.
What advice would you give your past self?
Yeah. Wow. Past self. I'd say that your life circumstances do not define you. The support you have or lack of support does not create your value. You are, oh man, might get emotional with this. It's like you are divinely, you're like a diamond. Like you have such value and you're cool and you have something to bring to this world that is so important for you to discover. So don't let your current circumstances or the raging storm around you take that from you. Like you are a diamond. You were created for great things. And the more you discover that, the more joy you'll have and the more you'll be able to bring to those around you that you love and those around you that are in your community. And then you'll help other people discover that in themselves too.
How important, because I think so many times people think, I can't, or not me, or I'm not worth it. That value part from dealing with all of life can be challenging. So now you, Tim, today are going to have a conversation with your future self. You can pick 10, 20, 30 years, and you're sitting in your favorite place by yourself with your future self. What would you ask him, and what do you think he would say back to you?
Wow, these are good. Wow. I'd ask him if he was present for the moments that were most important with his kids and his wife, and were you present in my day-to-day so that you didn't let busyness or some idea of success or did you allow like the thoughts or emotions of others to take or control like what your destiny or God-given call was? Like, did you run the race well?
And what do you think your future self would say?
Oh man, I hope he says yes.
Heck yes. Heck yes. I'm pretty sure he's going to say, well, of course.
Man.
Of course.
Thank you for believing in me there.
Well, I do.
Yeah, that is the dream.
That's amazing. Well, thank you again for the time that you spent today, and we're going to have you back to talk about more. And I wish you nothing but the most success in your new clinic. I have no doubt it will make a difference.
Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you.
Thank you.